Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Yes, another weird background, another weird location. I'm sorry, I'm writing exams. That's not important. Well, it is. Clutch chess. Day 3. Points are tripled effectively for a win. You get 3 points for winning. So everybody's in play. Magnus Carlsen led, but did he still lead at the end of the day? He hasn't won a day. He finished second on day 1, he finished second on day 2. He led overall. How did he go when facing off against his compatriots? First up, he played his old rival, Hikaru Nakamura. And their two-match series was a little bit interesting, I suppose. Magnus played e4, Hikaru played a Sicilian, which he plays here and there. He hasn't always played it. He's been a Berlin player, but he plays the Sicilian now. We get d4, we get an open Sicilian, and Magnus plays a gambit. He gambits a pawn early on, which is interesting. You don't often see Magnus going for this kind of stuff, and we get into a unique position early on. Magnus launching forward with e5, and Hikaru here makes a mistake. He plays knight to h6. So Magnus already might be just slightly better. We get e takes d6, short castles from Hikaru, gambiting the pawn back effectively. And we'll be equal on material, and that's exactly what we get. Knight to d5, queen to c5, bishop to b3. Obviously, you don't want the bishop taken. Bishop to e6, putting pressure on the knight. We can attack the queens, make it slide over, attack. We go all the way back to d8. We don't want to repeat moves, and now the bishop comes out to attack the queen. It looks like we might just get a repetition of moves, but no. These two went insane, absolutely insane. So we have queen a5 again. Now, you might just expect Magnus to play queen to d2. No, he plays rook to c1. And here, Hikaru Nakamura sacrificed the rook. Rook a8. Sacrifices the rook. Because, just hangs it in one move. Boom, boom. But now, you've got a problem. There are too many attackers on your knight. It's gonna die. So what do you do if you're Magnus Carlsen? Well, of course, you sacrifice the rook as well. Rook takes c6. Because pawn takes, and now you can give a check. King slides over, and the rook is protected, just by the way, so you can't take it. But now you can play knight takes c6, which is a fork. Rook takes, we take the queen, we take, and we get to this endgame after bishop to d7. How did these two get here? Unfortunately, that's kind of where the fireworks ended, because Magnus brought his knight back, we pinned the knight, he took the knight, and we got to this endgame. And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, these players are far too good as we get this trade into opposite colored bishops. And they then repeated moves and made a draw. But let's just look at that sequence of moves again, right? From here, queen to c5. We had bishop to b3. We attacked the queen once, twice, 3 times. And not 4 times. Rook to c1. And then from here, we hang a rook. And then we sack the rook. All to get this tactical sequence. Unbelievable calculation from both players to liquidate into an endgame. And so their mini-match ended 1-1. You got 1 point for a draw, so they ended 1-1. Can Magnus Carlsen really afford to slip up again? Because Gukesh and Fabiano would have played each other, and their match also ended 1-1. So Magnus handed a lifeline. How did he go against Fabiano Caruana? How did he go? Well, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. Oh, it's not on screen. Now it's on screen. Sorry, Chess.com's doing the weird thing, so I'm just having to manually switch between games. Fabi with the white pieces, we get e4, e5, knight f3, knight to c6, and we get bishop to b5. Now, yesterday, Magnus Carlsen, we ended up in a Berlin endgame. Today, we play a traditional Spanish with a6, bishop to a4. Now knight to f6, short castles, and bishop to e7, a closed Spanish. And Fabi makes the decision to take the knight. I've only seen this move once, and it was actually played against Magnus Carlsen by Jan Nepomniachtchi in the World Championship that they had. We get d takes c6, now rook to e1, knight drops back, and d4. Actually, no, sorry. It wasn't Jan Nepomniachtchi versus Magnus Carlsen. It was Jan Nepomniachtchi versus Ding Liren that I remember this from. Fabi explodes in the center. We get takes, queen takes, which looks silly, but you can actually get away with it. We develop the bishop. We don't trade queens. Very important as Magnus reroutes his knight. We move the bishop out the way. You don't want to just give it up for no reason. We allow a tempo on the queen, and then we can bring our knight out. And this is the position that the players have to play. You would probably give the edge in terms of development to Fabiano Caruana. Magnus has got quite a strong structure here on the queen side. It is that same structure you get in a Berlin endgame. But Magnus has the benefit of that, but castling and still have his queen on the board. So you're probably not going to break through on the queen side. If anything, Magnus might, because he's got a 4-on-3. And the 4-on-3 for white is not as easy to break through because the kings are castled there. So if you start pushing your pawns, you're going to weaken your own king. So b6 from Magnus. Rook ad1, bishop to a6, attacks the queen. We have to play c4, now queen to e7. Knight b3 though. A slight misstep from Fabiano Caruana, Magnus immediately onto it. Bishop to b4. Rook has to slide back, and now look at that, b5. And you've got a choice to make. Do you push and lose the pawn, or do you take? Neither. We bring the knight forward. But knight takes, and now I capture the pawn. You can't capture it back. Magnus Carlsen is up a pawn. We get queen to e3, rook f8, rook fe8. a3. Huge miss. The best move for Fabi to hold on here is to play knight f5, actually. In an interesting turn. You attack the queen. You might be able to allow your queen to come threaten mate. You're threatening this as well, and all sorts of things. Because although Magnus is up a pawn, he does have tripled, c-pawns, which is not easy. a3 is played, but now look at that, c3. Take the bishop. I don't want it. I've got eyes on your rook, and I'm taking here. And he takes the bishop. He takes the bait. Bishop takes f1. We capture. B takes c3. And I come back. Takes again, but now queen takes. And Magnus beelines for the endgame because it's better for him. The bishop takes, but now look at that, we've doubled the rooks. You can get here, but we trade off a set of rooks, and I bring my rook back. And there's nothing you're going to be able to do. I'm going to scoop up your remaining pawns, and you're not going to win this endgame because I have a rook. It's not perfect, but Magnus Carlsen, extracting water from stone, continues to just play this endgame. Opposite colored bishops, normally drawish, but as long as Magnus doesn't lose his rook, it's actually beneficial for him because Fabi's bishop can't defend against his light squared bishop. So you're going to be able to create problems as we trade off one set of pawns. Rook to h3 now. Ooh, check. Takes, and we win this pawn. Now it's about pushing Magnus's final pawn or winning one of the pieces. a6, we bring the rook back. a7, king a5, h5, bishop. And now we maneuver. Magnus Carlsen going to extract water from stone. His bishop defending promotion, so now he's got to bring the pawn forward. He takes time. He repeats the position a couple times. They've got seconds on the clock. He doesn't want to blunder, a rook or a fork or something as he brings his pawn forward. He allows the king all the way up. Just got to be careful, Eventually, he will find the way through, and he does. G1 queen. Forces this exchange. And now it's just important. He gives check, and he makes sure he doesn't lose the bishop. He will have to give the bishop up, doesn't blunder his rook. In fact, pins the knight to the king, bring the bishop in, and rook to a1 was the final move of the game. Because this pawn cannot promote, that bishop has safeguarded it this whole endgame, and you will lose this endgame. So Fabiano Caruana resigns. Magnus won their match 6-love. He won both games, each worth 3 points. And Fabi, going into the day, was his closest competitor. Believe it or not. But could Gukesh turned things around. He had a fantastic day one. With a couple of wins, he would have still been in the running. So how did their games go? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it was not so straightforward for one of these players. e4, e5, knight f3, knight to c6, bishop to b5. Another Spanish, this time played by Magnus Carlsen with the white pieces. a6, bishop to a4, d6. It's a system in the Spanish. It's not often played, but it is a way to play. c4, bishop to g4, knight to c3. This is not a very common way to see the Spanish played, really. You don't normally see c4 because the idea is to play d4, but now you can't really do that without playing c3. You've allowed this bishop out with a pin. Okay, that's not how the bishop moves, but you take my point. So we invite this trade. The queen comes out, knight drops back, and it's early on. It's a very maneuvering game. Both players having to do maneuvering, as Magnus gives up the bishop but damages Gukesh's structure. Gukesh does have his knight well placed to put pressure on this weakness that Magnus Carlsen voluntarily created. It's very interesting to see Magnus play with this structure. We get d4, kicking the knight out. Well, not trying to, but we get the trade. And now the bishop targets the knight, so we grab the pawn. Did Gukesh just hang a pawn? No. He didn't. Magnus survives, just about, putting pressure on the knight and through the rook there. Queen to g4, though. Queen comes forward. Now short castles. Short castles. And Gukesh takes what looks to be a free pawn. But it's not. And this might just be where the game turns. Magnus doesn't capitalize right away. He takes first. But now, bishop to g5, targets the queen. Queen has to move to e4. It's the only really square for it. Bishop to e7 attacks the rook. Rook slides over again to the only square. And now you attack the queen again. We get this trade, but this position is better for Magnus Carlsen because there's a hidden problem with it for black. Even though you get knight to d3, I'm going to bring my rook forward. You targeted, now you've created a weakness. All of a sudden, Magnus Carlsen is in. And despite having that weakness that knight captured, or was, disappeared a long time ago, Magnus got rid of it, black themselves created weaknesses. Knight to f4, I take. We take, I bring the bishop back. Rook slides over, look at that. Knight to the back rank, knight to d8, because we are going to target the knight, bring this back, and not trade rooks. And now you run into a huge problem. I capture the bishop, right? You can't even take this back because it's mate in 2. With bishop to h6, king has to come here, and then you get mated. So knight takes f8 can't be responded. You have to bring the knight out. This knight is trapped, kind of. It's not really. But rook e7, and Magnus Carlsen wins because he's just mating Gukesh. Or Gukesh has to give a mass amount here. You might think, wait, but that's a free rook. Yes, knight takes d7. You still got massive problems. I'm still gonna mate you. Or you're gonna have to give up your rook for the knight, and I'm just up a piece. Magnus Carlsen today went undefeated. He drew both games against Hikaru Nakamura and then proceeded to win both games against Fabiano Caruana and both games against Gukesh Dommaraju to finish this tournament with 25.5 points. He was 9 points ahead of second place, which was Fabiano Caruana. The difference between Fabi and last place Gukesh was 6.5 points. If that's not dominance, I don't know what is. Magnus Carlsen is just too good. We got to create other events for him. Maybe this combined world championship is actually good. How are we going to challenge this man? He's too good. These are 4 of the best players in the world. Magnus Carlsen made this look easy. Just dispatched the world champion Gukesh, the world number 2, the world number 3. And he didn't even look phased. At all. Not today, at least.